Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you joining me on this wonderful day. Hopefully the weather will treat us well and we'll be able to get through a lovely rally of some music, some performances, some talking about music. We're just going to have a good time, and hopefully we should get through this with before the rain even really kicks in. So, to open this rally, I just want to talk quickly about what this rally is and why I think it's important. So we talk about music and activism a lot on this corner, and one of the things we talk about a lot is the constant conversation about if there is still activism in music, if the old days of folk artists singing songs and galvanizing people across the country has actually gone, or it's simply changed, or what's really happened with that. And I think I wanted to hold this rally because I wanted to celebrate it, but in order to celebrate it, I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge what it does look like today. So I want to talk to you about activism and music and how they combine today, because they are intertwined. And if we want to celebrate them together, we have to remember how intertwined they are, and they will always be. They have always been run political songs have always been written by complicated figures. That's something I've only learned more true looking into the past, looking into the artists who have inspired generations. And we've become increasingly critical of those people, I think. And I think that's part of the reason we feel we don't have that sense of political music we used to, because we're a lot more critical of artists when they engage in politics at all these days. And I think being critical of them is actually very appropriate. And it makes sense given a lot of the figures we've had historically who we have retroactively become fairly critical of while still celebrating their achievements. It's built into the legacy of activism and musicians that these are going to be complicated figures. I mean, today we will be talking about some complicated figures alone. But art needs to come from people. That's what makes art so powerful and beautiful. And if it comes from people, it needs to come from messy people. It will be like this, but it needs to be human. I think music is just as central to activism as ever, and it's still just as worthy of critique and celebration as ever. And today I want to celebrate it a bit, because when I look around, I see a lot of modern activism mixed up in mainstream artists, mainstream musical artists. And I don't know if everybody sees it as clearly. So I want to talk a second about how that inspires me. When I look around today, what do I see as the political movements within music? Well, when I look around, I see quite a lot. To me, modern day political music activism is Taylor Swift endorsing candidates in multiple elections. It's Harry Styles wearing a dress on the front page of a huge magazine. It's Lil Uzi Vert, a rapper, wearing a dress. And when asked by paparazzi why he's wearing the dress, his response was simply, "Well, I ran out of things to buy in the men's aisle." A response that doesn't feel political, but does feel very validating to a lot of queer people who do wear clothes that go across the spectrum. When I look around, I see it in Bad Bunny, one of the biggest artists in the world, saying, quote unquote, "I don't believe in gendered clothing." I see it in Casey Musgraves, a country star, mainstream star from Texas, who released a record that year that included a song talking about how much she loved Texas, except for their laws. I see it in Chappell Roan, another mainstream artist who built a huge huge fan base of inspiring people with being open, vulnerable, and proud of their queerness. And when they got there, they talked openly about how they didn't even want a platform, and they wish they didn't have a platform. But nonetheless, they were still going to use that platform to not only speak up for queer people, but to speak up for what they felt were murders being committed in Gaza. I see it in Nate Roos and Jack Antonoff, two random musical figures from my past who you might know because they were in the band Fun, a mainstream band in 2013. Never associated either of them with politics. But this year, they are still making music. Nate Roos disappeared for 10 years, came back with a record this year with his indie band from the early 2000s. And in between, looking back at songs about relationships and growing up, he wrote a song about how difficult it is to talk to your children about what's happening in Gaza, how it tears him apart to have to negotiate what it means, how he feels about this country in these conversations. Jack Antonoff went on to be one of the biggest producers in the world, becoming one of the main producers for Taylor Swift, for Lorde, for Sabrina Carpenter. And he released a song this year where he talks about how cruel the world can be and talks about what are we supposed to do with those who want to bully the dolls. A rallying cry to protect trans people from the trans rights movement that started over 40 years ago. I see it in Sabrina Carpenter, a former Disney kid, modern-day sex symbol, mainstream art, icon artist. After her songs were used by the White House in an ICE post, she said, quote unquote, "This video is evil and disgusting. Do not involve me or my music to benefit your inhuman agenda." I see it in Olivia Rodrigo, another former Disney star who also spoke out about their music being used in these tweets. But they didn't actually even need to wait. We didn't even need to wait that long to know how they felt. As soon as the ICE raid started in LA, they took to their platform to say, "I've lived in LA my whole life, and I'm deeply upset about these violent deportations of my neighbors under the current administration," and went on to celebrate the diversity of our country. I look around and I see it in Megan Thee Stallion, a rapper pop artist who wrote a New York Times op-ed called "Why I Speak Up for Black Women." And there are a million smaller artists for every big artist doing this. This isn't about the specific artists, in my opinion. Don't you feel the energy that comes from using art this way? From hearing that art is being used to push for social, meaningful change? Because isn't that what art is meant to do? Isn't that part of what art needs to do in our society? To activate something inside of us, to inspire us while pushing us to question things we've assumed. This is not about the artists themselves. It's about how the power of art brings all of them and all of us together to stand tall and fight for change. And that is always worth celebrating. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I'm going to actually hand the microphone back to Gregory to play another song for us, and then we're going to get on some great speakers. Thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful time.
Jeremy, did you do how many weeks we are?
Oh gosh, how many are we?
319.
This is the 319th week of Justice Southbury, I forgot to mention. Thank you everybody for being here for our 319th week.
That's really incredible. Congratulations, everybody.